Welcome to Vocabulary Booster session number 3. Back in session number 1, we acknowledged the significance of using explicit and robust vocabulary instruction. We know the benefits, and if we don't, Isabel Beck talks about that in great detail in her book, Bringing Words to Life. So, we talked about how to identify words that could be or should be put through an explicit 6-step vocabulary routine. I showed you that bookmark that can be used. That bookmark will be your teacher's best friend when identifying Tier 2 words, front and back. I'll come back to the bookmark in just a moment. In session 2, we talked about defining words and developing that initial understanding of that word and its definition. We talked about, we do this, really our main goal is comprehension. Okay? So we're going to take that a step further in this session when we look at examples, creating non-examples for vocabulary words. Now this is something that when I come out and visit campuses and I talk to you all and I go into teachers' classrooms, Maria and I have talked about it, Becky and I have talked about it. It is an area, I think, of concern, especially those non-examples. And hopefully this session today, we can break that down for your teachers and make that a less stressful process for them. I know that I had a teacher tell me one time, well, I don't do non-examples because it just confuses everyone. I hope that this adds some clarity to that. And I do understand what that teacher meant when she said that. I get it. So I'm going to break down the process for you, and we'll see if we can clear up some of the haze, okay? So as we look at today's information, and we start to develop those examples and non-examples, we will look once again at Explicit Instruction for Effective Teaching by Anita Archer and Charles Hughes. Note that we did not include this information in the second booster session because the discussion of examples and non-examples should be a part of how you introduce words during that explicit vocabulary routine, okay? So by the end of this session, we will be able to develop those examples and non-examples using the critical attributes of a definition. And I will break critical attributes down for you deeper in just a moment. So the next session, session 4, will actually address those deep processing activities, and that's another area. We get lots of questions about that. What are some deep processing activities that I can use with my students? Give me a list. They want that list that they can go off of. I was that teacher too. Show me what you want me to do, and I'm more than happy to do it. But spell it out for me first, and I hope that we do that a little bit more today. So now, let's go back, if you will. Let's review our criteria for selecting those Tier 2 words, because I'm referring back to that bookmark, okay? Number 1, importance and utility. Number 2, instructional potential. Number 3, that conceptual understanding. If you are watching this video and you have not yet seen session 1 or session 2, look at that bookmark on the back. It goes through each of the steps, and it even gives you test questions for yourself. So under importance and utility, is this a word that students will see in a variety of texts? Instructional potential, is this a word that can help students express themselves? Conceptual understanding, is this a word that will allow students to more specifically describe a concept? Isn't that our goal? And also, under conceptual understanding, words that are important to the conceptual understanding of the given text that you are working on at the time. Okay, so is this a word that is critical to comprehending the selected text? Okay, bookmark is your best friend. Now, I'm going to move into the I do portion of session 3. Anita Archer and Charles Hughes, on page 70 of Explicit Instruction, if you'd like to make a note of that, Here's what they say. Presenting students with a definition, even a student-friendly definition, is not adequate for vocabulary attainment. Students will also need examples of the vocabulary term's use, and when the concept is more difficult, non-examples in order to establish firmly what the concept is and what it is. Say it with me. Not. Very important, yes. So the purpose of today's booster session is to learn how to develop appropriate and relevant examples and non-examples that use those critical attributes or uniqueness of the Tier 2 words that we've selected to teach through that explicit vocabulary routine. So the examples and the non-examples will definitely help students gain ownership of the material. So let me show you this little visual, okay? Right here in the center of the circle, those are examples. And in an example, all of the critical attributes are present. Now, when I say critical attributes, I'm talking about parts of the definition, parts of the student-friendly definition, okay? In a non-example, they have a positive and a negative sign here because you might have some of the critical attributes, but not all of them. So all other words, they won't contain the critical attributes, and therefore they don't necessarily help students to understand the boundaries of that word's meaning. Okay? Now, going back to the explicit instruction book, let's see, I guess I can do this one page at a time. Yeah. So Anita Archer and Charles Hughes, they go through the steps for creating examples and non-examples here. So I am going to read through that with you. So step one, do I have that? There we go. Step one, we would examine the student-friendly definition that we created, by the way. We did it. Remember that? We created that definition, so we're going to examine it a little further. We're going to determine what are that definition's critical attributes. Okay? We're going to break down that definition. In that previous booster session, we did discuss critical attributes in terms of noting the uniqueness of the word. But in this step, you're breaking the uniqueness of that word into parts, if you will. Step 2 is over here on the next page of, this is 73 of explicit instruction. So here we're going to develop examples in which all of those critical attributes are present. They're all there. And then step 3, we're going to develop those non-examples in which some, but not all of the critical attributes are present. So I'm going to start by modeling the steps that we will use to create these examples and non-examples. So I'm starting with my I do at this point, okay? So let me introduce it a little bit here first. Okay, let me go back to 72 and show you one more thing before I move on. Yeah, let's take a look at how Archer and Hughes determine the critical attributes of definitions by examining the examples that they've actually provided for us here on page 72. And they've given us two words here, conglomeration and contentious. So looking at conglomeration, here's the definition. When many different things are gathered together in an untidy and unusual way. That's a conglomeration. Okay? Now, here are the critical attributes, and I'm going straight back to this definition to find them. I'm not going anywhere else. There are 3 critical attributes here. Many different things gathered together in an untidy or unusual way. So those are my 3 attributes. Let's look at contentious. The definition, a contentious person is someone who is always ready to argue. So really, we just have one critical attribute there, right? We just have the one. It's someone who's always ready to argue. Or always ready to argue. It doesn't have to be the person. That would imply it's a person. So always ready to argue is our one attribute. Okay? So, looking at step one of the you do, my word on this handout is retaliate. And obviously, we didn't go over some of these words. It's the words that Archer and Hughes use in the book Explicit Instruction for Effective Teaching. So that's why I'm using this example with you. So the word is retaliate. Here is my student-friendly definition. Okay? When you harm someone in return for an injury or wrong that he or she has done to you. Okay? So if I reveal my critical attributes for that word, I'm going to pull it right out of that student-friendly definition. Harm someone in return for an injury or wrong that he or she has done. Do we see that? Do we see that I'm pulling those attributes right out of there? Wonderful. Going back to this book now, Bringing Words to Life. Share a quote with you here. The authors say, the purpose was to make students' word knowledge flexible so that they could both understand the word and apply the word to a variety of contexts. If a student's understanding of a word is limited to a narrow definition or stereotypical context, an example, delighted is always used in association with receiving a gift, then many applications of the word will not be readily comprehended, and the students will have only that limited opportunity to use the word for speech and for writing. Okay? So it's important to note here that you need to be thoughtful in the examples that you create to ensure that your students can gain ownership of the word in not just one context, but in a variety of contexts. Okay? So let's return to our example on page 73 of Explicit Instruction. And Archer and Hughes have developed examples which all of the critical attributes are present. Okay, so conglomeration is the word. Many different things gathered together in an untidy or unusual way. Here's an example. Miss Martin has a basket near her front door containing newspapers, junk mail, dog bones, running shoes, makeup, and garden seeds. This is a conglomeration. Do you see? Is it many different things? Are they gathered together? Does it sound like it's in an untidy or an unusual way? I think so. Okay? Let's do the same thing for the word contentious. Again, these are just words that the authors of Explicit Instruction have provided with us, for us, okay? So contentious, always ready to argue. Remember, it really just had the one attribute. An example, no matter the issue or the person, Mrs. Regent is willing to argue. Mrs. Regent is contentious. Did you see the one critical attribute there? Was that pretty clear? Wonderful. Okay. Let me go back to this handout now. So if I'm looking at my word retaliate, okay, we know that retaliate is when you harm someone in return for an injury or a wrong he or she has done to you. That means you retaliate. So I pulled out those critical attributes from that student-friendly definition. Harm someone in return for an injury or wrong he or she has done. Let me show you my example. On his blog, James wrote a number of lies about Justin. These lies really hurt Justin, so he retaliated by writing even meaner things about James in his blog. Okay. Yes. There are parts of this training that are very uplifting. I'll tell you. Okay. So now we're going to move on to step 3, and we're going to talk about developing those non-examples. And we talked about this is probably the most controversial part of everything, right? This is the iffy part. And I'm here to tell you, even sometimes I have to stop and go, well, we all do. Our whole team, we have to stop and really think about it. So let's talk through it. We know that non-examples can help students understand the uniqueness of the word by exploring the boundaries of that word. So as Archer and Hughes state, remember what that quote that I read? They're going to talk about what it is and what it is not. That's very significant. So let's take one more look at our example words to see how Archer and Hughes develop those non-examples in which some, but not all, of the critical attributes are present. So let's go right back to that word conglomeration. We said an example. Miss Martin has a basket near her front door containing newspapers, junk mail, dog bones, running shoes, makeup, and garden seeds. This is a conglomeration because there are many different things gathered together in an untidy or an unusual way. Let's look at that non-example. This is straight from explicit instruction, page 73. Miss Martin has a huge basket of junk mail sitting near her front door. This would not be called a conglomeration because all of the items are what? They're the same. So we've already ruled out one of our attributes there. In every room in her house, Miss Martin has a collection, including collections of shells, driftwood, rare books, teacups, ivory, jewelry, and Chinese dishes. I think she was on that show Hoarders. That's what it sounds like to me. These would not be considered a conglomeration because these things, though different, have not been what? Gathered together. So do you see how we have some of those attributes that are common attributes, but some are not? That's a tough thing sometimes to decipher. Let's look at another example. Contentious, because remember, this is the one that only had how many attributes? Okay, let's look at our example first. No matter the issue or the person, Mrs. Regent is willing to argue. Mrs. Regent is contentious because she's always ready to argue. Okay, here's our not example. No matter the issue or the person, Mrs. Regent is open-minded and positive and waiting to learn from other people's viewpoints. Mrs. Regent is not contentious. Now, do you see how we kind of, I'm just going to say this word. Do you see how we went to the opposite? Why did we have to do that? There was one attribute, what you gonna do, right? But are we accomplishing our goal of showing them what it is and what it's not? That goal is being accomplished, so absolutely. So let me go back to my retaliate one more time. Okay, so here, my example for the word retaliate. On his blog, James wrote a number of lies about Justin. These lies really hurt Justin, so he retaliated by writing even meaner things about James in his blog. So here's my non-example. Bernard wrote lies about Justin on his blog. Though the lies really hurt Justin, he decided to ignore the comments because he realized that Bernard often lied. Justin did not retaliate. Okay? So I want to note here that examples and non-examples are not only verbal, but they're also concrete and visual. Okay, so when I'm talking about concrete examples, I'm talking about they include showing an actual example or acting out a word. That's a concrete example. I tend to do concrete examples a lot because I move around and I have energy that just kind of wants to explode out of me, right? Visual. Now, these are examples that include showing a picture or an illustration of the word, but you have to be what? Careful. Select with care, right? When we talk about verbal, we're talking about examples that include providing a verbal or a written explanation of a word, such as a story or a given scenario. Okay, so these same principles that we use to develop verbal examples and non-examples should be used for concrete and visual examples and non-examples. So for example, when you show a picture as an example, make sure that all of those critical attributes are present, or you will trip them up. When showing a non-example, make sure that some, but not all, of those critical attributes are present in that picture. And that can be a tricky task. Okay? So, that was the I do. All right. We're going to move on to the we do portion of Vocabulary Booster number 3. So you know you're getting involved now, right? All right. So we're going to go back to our enemy pie words. And Enemy Pie by Derek Munson. Let me move these things out of the way now. And remember that we went through the book. This is just my little sticky note. We went through the book, and this was the whole book. We identified words that my second grade students might not be familiar with, and I wrote those down. Then I circled the words that I think I could probably categorize as tier 2 words, right? But then what I did is I chose from those that were circled and could possibly be tier 2 words, the ones that I'm actually going to teach explicitly, which means what? I'm taking these words through the 6-step routine. And AISD says, how many per week? 2 to 3 is acceptable. 4 to 5 is our goal, right? So once again, imagine that I'm a second grade teacher, and we're going to read Enemy Pie as a part of our realistic fiction genre study. And I've read the text. I've selected the words that I think will be unknown to my students. So now we were going to, we did look at developing those student-friendly explanations to use as a part of the vocabulary routine for each of the tier 2 words right here that I've identified: disgusting, nervous, and relieved. So now I need to develop some examples and some non-examples to use as part of the explicit routine for each one of the words that I selected. But for this activity today, because we're short on time, let's just look at 2 words. Let's just look at disgusting and nervous, because those are the 2 that we focused on earlier. So before we develop examples and non-examples, let's review the student-friendly definitions that we created earlier, which are listed on your We Do activity handout. Could you please get your We Do activity handout for me, please? All right. So if you would, I hope everyone's partners came back. I hope I didn't scare anybody away. Is there anyone whose partner is not back? Ah, that's good. Well, you at least have one partner to work with? That's wonderful. So work with a partner, and I want you to practice the steps together, and we'll fill out this handout. So let's start with step 1. So all I would like for you to do is use the same word that you were assigned before, either disgusting or nervous, and with your partner, use the student-friendly definition for your assigned word to determine those critical attributes and pull them out of that word. You're only doing your word, either disgusting or nervous. I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes, so please go. Wonderful. Then let's go ahead and reveal the critical attributes that we have here. So for disgusting, something you do not like, something or makes you feel sick, right? We pulled that right out of our student-friendly definition. For the word nervous, feeling worried or scared about something. Okay? Did anybody have something different that they would like to share? Something different. If you do, I would love to hear it. You never know. Might make more sense. I think it's pretty I was waiting for that. Absolutely. And that would be something that you could certainly choose to do.
Same thing with it makes you feel sick. Just because you're sick doesn't mean you have a
Exactly. Which we're going to talk about that example in a minute. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay. Let's go ahead and let's move to step 2. So this time, with your partner, develop an example of the word in which all of the critical attributes that you just pulled out are present. An example of the word that you are assigned in which all of the critical attributes are present. Sorry. You can share an example for the word disgusting. Yes. We usually go there, don't we? That's just the way it is. Yeah, him. She says, not me, him. Okay. An example of the word nervous. Nervous. That one's a little harder. Nervous is a wee bit harder. Yes, ma'am.
We made an effort at this one.
Okay.
The student was nervous about the parent-teacher conference because his grades were low and his mom didn't know because he was hiding his papers from her. Right, that's nervous, that's worried and scared.
Yes, yes. Very nice example. Very nice. So let me show you what I have. For disgusting, seeing Jim throw up, there it is, on the roller coaster made Fred throw up too. I understand this. Afterward, Fred said he would never ride a roller coaster with Jim again. Jim throwing up was disgusting to Fred. I guess that's a little disclaimer. He didn't think Fred was disgusting. He thought what was disgusting? The act of throwing up. Looking at nervous. The skydivers say they are always afraid to take the first step out of the plane. The skydivers are nervous about jumping. Now, come on. Are you really a skydiver if you're nervous taking that first step out of the plane? But these are our examples. So, I digress. Okay, the final step, step number 3, is to create what? Non-examples. So here, look at that word, look at the attributes. You can have some present, but not all, in order for this to qualify as a non-example. So take a couple of minutes and come up with non-examples for disgusting or nervous. Could someone share with me a non-example for the word disgusting? Yes, ma'am. I got sick when I ate too much pizza. Pizza is my favorite food. Pizza is not disgusting. Okay? How about for nervous? Nice. Here are my non-examples. Even though Adriana's dog was sprayed by a skunk and she could not go near him without gagging, she still liked him. The dog is not disgusting to Adriana because she still likes him. Dominic confidently stepped to the line and made 2 free throws to win the game. Dominic was not worried or scared about taking the free throws. He was not nervous. So very nice. That was the we do. Now, I'm going to model the routine for you. How is this all going to look when you put it together? Well, you are second graders in Mr. Rain's class. So good afternoon, second grade. I want to teach you a new word today. The word is disgusting. Say it with me. Disgusting. Yes, very nice, boys and girls. So disgusting is an adjective that describes something that you do not like. because it makes you feel sick. So for example, seeing Jim throw up on the roller coaster made Fred throw up too. And afterward, Fred said he would never ride a roller coaster with Jim again. So Jim throwing up was disgusting to Fred. So this example describes something that Fred didn't like because it made him feel what? It made him feel sick. So now let's look at a non-example of the word disgusting. Even though Adriana's dog was sprayed by a skunk, she could not go near him without gagging. She still liked him. The dog is not disgusting to Adriana because she still likes him. So let's talk with our partner about the word disgusting. What are some foods that you would consider disgusting? What makes them disgusting? Talk with your partner again. Great. I heard some wonderful conversation, boys and girls. I heard an interesting comment over here about something that is yellow that somebody thinks is disgusting. Would you like to share with us?
I think mustard is disgusting.
She thinks mustard is disgusting. Raise your hand if you agree. She thinks mustard is disgusting. Why is it disgusting?
The smell makes me sick.
Describe the smell for me.
I don't even know how, because I stay away from it. It's just gross. It's like,
So because of the smell, you think it probably affects the way it tastes in your mouth. That's interesting. Very good. Thank you for sharing that example. Could I get one more example from my class for that word disgusting? Share another food item that you think is disgusting and tell me why you think it's so disgusting. Yes, ma'am. Liver. Tell me why you think liver is disgusting.
The texture.
The texture.
It's
So
kind of grainy and kind of yuck.
and then see, she brought out another tier 2 word. I love it. Very nice. Great. Thank you for sharing. Well, you know, let's learn another word. This word is nervous. Say it with me. Nervous. Very good. So the word nervous is an adjective that describes feeling worried or scared about something. So for example, the skydivers say that they're always afraid to take the first step out of the plane. The skydivers are nervous about jumping. This example of the word nervous describes how the skydivers feel worried or scared about something. And in this case, it's taking the first step out of that airplane. So now let's look at a non-example for the word nervous. Dominic confidently stepped to the line and made 2 free throws to win the game. Dominic was not worried or scared about taking the free throws. He was not nervous. Okay? So let's practice our understanding of this word nervous. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and if you think you would feel nervous, please give me a thumbs up. If you think that you would not feel nervous, show me a thumbs down. Would you be nervous if you were called to the principal's office? Tell me, why would you not be nervous?
because she's my friend.
Because she's your friend. So that's not scary. Who else? Who's somebody that would be nervous? Somebody that would be nervous and had a thumbs up if they got called to the principal's office. Oh, come on. Who would be nervous? I'm coming to the back of the room. You're going to play. Come on. Who would be I know you would be nervous. I know you would. Tell me why. What did you say to your friend? Share it with me. I want to know. Because what?
Oh, no, I just said I was nervous that you may call on me.
Nervous. I get that. I get that. And I come over and get in your personal space. That's right. Thank you, friend. Thank you. Thanks for playing the rain game. Here we go. Yes. Why would you be nervous?
Because of the unknown. You know, you're not sure why you're being called.
Why am I being called to the principal's office? What's going to happen to me when I get there? That would make me feel worried or scared about something, perhaps, right? So would you be nervous if you were going to play on the playground with your friend? Show me thumbs up if you would. Thumbs down if you wouldn't. Okay? Tell me why or why not. One person. Tell me why you would not be nervous. Because they're my friend, they won't hurt me. So I don't feel worried or scared about that because they're not going to hurt me. I know them, they're my friend. Okay? Lastly, would you be nervous if you were unprepared for a big test? Thumbs up if you would be, thumbs down if you would not be. I know her answer. Okay? Tell me one reason that you would be nervous. Anybody? Want to be successful, okay? Absolutely. So that would make me feel a little worried or scared about failing. Okay? So that's how I would put those steps through the explicit vocabulary routine. Okay? Isn't that fun? Don't you like to role play? Come on. I'm starting to lose them a little bit after lunch. Their energy's starting to go. That's all right, I understand. Okay, so now if you would, please take out the Tier 2 words that you pulled out of your books, your random books that we provided from the Von Gross Center. And you will also need your You Do activity handout. Which looks like this. So working with a partner, because we are in the You Do portion of session, this is 3 now, right? 3. We are working with a partner to fill out the handout by determining the critical attributes for each word. Go ahead and develop some examples, some non-examples that you will use to introduce the words to your students, as I did here, when you use the explicit vocabulary routine. So take a few minutes, and we will come back together. We had some interesting conversation at this center table, and I know that there was some interesting conversation at another table. So I love that you all are digging deep into these words, and that's really what it's all about. So yes, you're going to go, and I know a couple of people will go home with some new knowledge they didn't have before. So mission accomplished. So if you would, at this time, that's the end of our You Do section of session 3. So if you would, please take out your planning document for the vocabulary routine handout. If you have that handy, it looks like you do. This is what it looks like. So just so you know, you can use this handout when you're planning instruction in your classroom. An example of how to complete the document is also provided on the second page of the handout. Okay? So during the next session, we will learn how to create those activities that engage students and prompt them to interact with the meaning of those selected Tier 2 words.